It was the night of October 14, 1973, when Diana Foster, a bright 17-year-old girl, disappeared from her home in Kansas City, Missouri, leaving only a flickering porch light and an abandoned bicycle in the driveway. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp leaves and the faint tang of gasoline from nearby streets. Diana had been returning from a study group at a neighbor's house, her path illuminated by dim street lamps and the distant hum of the city. Her mother, Margaret Foster, had gone to check on dinner preparation, leaving Diana alone for just a few moments, a lapse that would change the family's life forever. Within hours, neighbors reported seeing unfamiliar black cars parked along the block, engines idling quietly, their occupants observing the Foster residence with intent that would remain mysterious for decades. The initial investigation, led by the local Kansas City Police Department, was immediately stymied. Patrol logs from the night had inexplicably vanished or been altered, and a crucial street camera, installed only months prior, had suffered a mysterious malfunction. Witnesses offered contradictory accounts, some swearing they saw a teenage girl being approached by strangers, while others claimed the neighborhood was empty save for the black cars. Margaret Foster, desperate and frantic, pleaded with authorities only to encounter vague promises and bureaucratic indifference. Within days, the trail had gone cold, street empty, and the shadow of organized crime had silently settled over the... Unknown to the investigators at the time, Diana's disappearance was the work of a small but powerful criminal network operating under layers of corruption. Key figures in city government, including a senior police lieutenant and a records clerk at the municipal office, had been bribed to obscure evidence. Navigation data from the time, traffic logs, utility patrols, and even delivery schedules were tampered with to create false alibis for known syndicate members. A sophisticated web of deceit, unseen to the casual observer, ensured that any leads pointing toward organized crime were routed into dead ends, leaving the Foster family to wrestle with confusion, fear, and grief. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, yet every search for Diana revealed only silence. Investigators examined every abandoned lot, warehouse, and riverbank in Kansas City, only to find scattered items, a tattered scarf, a partially buried notebook, and faint tire tracks that led nowhere. Attempts to track the black vehicles proved futile. Ownership and falsification. Even the FBI, when consulted, could find no conclusive evidence linking the sightings or traces of the syndicate. As the months stretched into years, the case became a cautionary tale for local law enforcement, a disappearance that no one could explain, and a criminal network that had mastered the art of invisibility. Over the next decade, rumors circulated about Diana's fate. Nothing concrete emerged. Some whispered she had been taken for ransom, others that she had been forced into criminal enterprise, and a few feared the worst, that she had been killed to prevent her from exposing dangerous secrets. The investigation suffered from false leads, anonymous tips from untraceable phone lines, supposed sightings in neighboring states, and letters claiming to contain hidden clues, all of which ultimately, each dead end reinforced a chilling truth. Whoever was responsible had ensured that no trail, no matter how faint, could lead investigators. Meanwhile, the syndicate continued to operate under the radar, growing more confident in their ability to manipulate local authority. Corrupt accomplices ensured that police reports remained superficial, cameras were disabled, and navigation and traffic logs were routinely tampered with. The true scope of the criminal network remained invisible to the public, leaving the Foster family in perpetual limbo. For 50 years, the memory of Diana lingered like a shadow over Kansas City, a haunting emblem of lost time and the enduring consequences of corruption and criminal ingenuity. Decades passed, the case of Diana Foster became one of Kansas City's most haunting cold cases. In 2023, a new task force specializing in long unsolved disappearances reopened the investigation, armed with modern forensic technology and renewed determination. Digital archives allowed investigators to cross-reference decades-old reports with contemporary data, revealing discrepancies in the original patrol logs and city records. GPS reconstructions, combined with archival traffic suggested the black vehicles seen that night had not moved randomly. They had followed a precise route designed to intercept Diana and avoid detection by law enforcement. The layers of deception began to emerge in a way that had been impossible in 1973. False leads continued to plague the new team. Witnesses who remembered seeing a young girl claimed it could have been another teenager entirely. Others swore they had seen cars belonging to a rival syndicate, introducing red herrings that demanded careful. Every tip had to be meticulously investigated, yet so much of the original evidence had been corrupted, destroyed. Analysts discovered that the municipal clerk had repeatedly altered the incident reports over the years, erasing references to key sightings and creating confusion that stymied both local and federal investigators. Each dead end weighed heavily on the task, but they persisted, knowing that even a small breakthrough could unravel the decades-long mystery. Months into the reopened investigation, a breakthrough came when technical analysts discovered anomalies in archived traffic camera footage from a nearby intersection. Though the footage was partially degraded, careful enhancement revealed faint shapes of black vehicles, with patterns matching those described by neighbors in 1973. Simultaneously, previously overlooked utility patrol logs indicated unusual activity near the Foster home the night Diana vanished. This confluence of technical evidence, degraded footage, manipulated logs, and modern analytics offered the first tangible leads in 50 years. Investigators began piecing together a map of the events, gradually revealing the syndicate's carefully choreographed operation. The task force also focused on the corrupt insiders who had maintained the cover-up. Using subpoena powers, they traced retired police officials, clerks, and city employees who had benefited from long-term syndicate payments. Financial forensics revealed unreported transactions, and interviews with associates uncovered subtle admissions, fleeting references to the girl who disappeared, and the backyard secret no one should know. These small fragments, long ignored, were now cross-referenced against technical, gradually painting a clearer picture of Diana's final movement and the criminal network orchestrating her disappearance. Investigators discovered a pattern in the syndicate's operations. Abductions were carefully timed, locations meticulously chosen, and local authorities routinely bribed or coerced to obscure evidence. The realization that Diana's disappearance was not an isolated event, but part of a systematic strategy, changed the approach of the task force. They realized that identifying a single member of the syndicate, particularly someone lower in the hierarchy, could eventually unravel the entire network. The decades-long frustration that had plagued previous investigators now seemed surmountable with persistent and modern technology. By late 2023, after painstaking analysis of years of corrupted logs, traffic patterns, and satellite imagery, authorities identified a potential key figure still alive and connected to the case: Vincent Marlowe, a mid-level enforcer who had once worked directly under the syndicate leadership. Marlowe, now in his 70s, had remained but not invisible. The task force carefully monitored his movement, reconstructing his connections and financial. Investigators knew that capturing him could finally unlock the truth about Diana Foster and the decades-long cover-up. The first tangible path toward closure had emerged, promising revelations that had eluded Kansas City for half a century. By February 2024, federal agents had meticulously planned the operation to apprehend Vincent Marlowe. Using surveillance, phone tracking, and financial monitoring, they observed him maintaining a quiet routine in a suburban Kansas City neighborhood, unaware that his past crimes were finally catching up. The capture operation involved coordinated teams stationed at multiple exits of his residence, ensuring no chance of escape. Tactical units moved silently through the streets, their presence masked by the early morning fog. The goal was to detain Marlowe without alerting potential accomplices who might still be loyal to the syndicate or intent on protecting him from exposure. When agents approached, Marlowe initially resisted, his years of caution giving way to a tense standoff. Threats of federal charges, life imprisonment, and exposure of his past criminal involvement compelled him to surrender peacefully. Under strict supervision, he was transported to a secure federal facility where interrogators began building rapport, carefully balancing pressure and the promise of reduced sentencing in exchange for cooperation. Marlowe's demeanor shifted as he realized that any attempt to evade the authorities would be futile. Decades of secrecy were finally collapsing, and his choices would determine whether he survived the unraveling of the syndicate. The first hours of interrogation revealed Marlowe's reluctance to speak, his mind grappling with the weight of years spent hiding his involvement. Investigators presented detailed evidence: tampered patrol logs, historical traffic data, satellite reconstructions, and corroborating eyewitness accounts from the night of Diana Foster's disappearance. Confronted with undeniable proof, Marlowe's defenses began to crack. Agents noticed a shift in his posture, a flicker of resignation, signaling that the moment had arrived for him to reveal the long-hidden truths about the syndicate's orchestration and the fate of the Foster family. In the first confession, Marlowe recounted the events of October 14, 1973, in chilling detail. He described how the syndicate had identified Diana as a potential witness to financial discrepancies involving local politicians and city officials. Black vehicles had been strategically positioned, and accomplices in law enforcement rerouted patrols to ensure no interference. Marlowe had personally approached Diana, feigning authority while quietly incapacitating her with a sedative. She was transported to a hidden property, chosen for its isolation and the complicity of nearby retired officials who had been bribed to monitor the location and maintain. Marlowe explained that the syndicate's plan included a deliberate cover-up designed to mislead investigators for decades. Every patrol log, camera record, and municipal report had been systematically altered to create confusion. Witnesses who came forward were ignored, threatened, or bribed. The property where Diana was held was frequently rotated to prevent discovery, and technical evidence, including vehicle navigation patterns, was manipulated to fabricate alibis. The criminal organization's precision and long-term planning ensured that, even as investigators searched tirelessly, the truth remained hidden beneath layers of deception. Finally, Marlowe revealed the grim fate of Diana Foster. While she survived her initial captivity, she was kept in isolation for months, subjected to threats and manipulation to prevent escape or disclosure of syndicate secrets. Marlowe admitted that over time, the syndicate relocated her to a secluded backyard facility, a place long buried under layers of soil and debris to hide all traces. Her prolonged captivity ended only through coordinated federal intervention decades later. The confession provided a complete, cruelly honest account of events, exposing the full scope of corruption, criminal planning, and the cover-up that had eluded authorities for 50 years, setting the stage for recovery, arrest, and eventual closure. By March 2024, federal authorities meticulously repaired the recovery operation at the site Marlowe had identified. The property, a seemingly ordinary backyard, a quiet Kansas City suburb, had long been concealed by overgrown shrubs, weathered fences, and years of neglect. Tactical teams approached cautious, mindful that remnants of the syndicate could still be nearby. Drones scanned the perimeter, while bomb-sniffing and forensic teams inspected possible booby traps, ensuring every The air was heavy with anticipation. After 50 years, the truth of Diana Foster's fate was finally within reach. Investigators discovered a hidden underground chamber beneath the backyard, accessed via a narrow hatch camouflaged by decades of soil and debris. The chamber had been constructed with reinforced walls, ventilation, and rudimentary living provisions, reflecting the syndicate's meticulous planning. Inside they found Diana, alive but frail, her body emaciated and her spirit marked by decades of isolation. She clung to memories of family, moments of freedom, the faint hope that someone would one day uncover the truth. Immediate medical care and psychological providing relief, but revealing the depth of trauma she had endured. Every inch of the chamber yielded evidence critical to corroborating Marlowe's confession. Faded journals, partial calendars etched into the walls, and remnants of rationed food provided insight into Diana's daily survival and the syndicate's calculated cruelty. Investigators cataloged each item, combining physical evidence with Marlowe's detailed accounts. Vehicle tracks, soil disturbances, and decayed equipment confirmed the long-term concealment of Diana and the precision with which the syndicate had orchestrated her captivity. The recovery operation transformed decades of conjecture into documented, undeniable reality. Outside the property, teams apprehended 2 remaining minor accomplices identified by Marlowe. Both had been quietly monitoring the area, ensuring that no intrusions exposed the syndicate's operations. Arrests were swift and precise, executed without resistance, demonstrating the authorities' careful planning. These individuals, though peripheral, held valuable information about the broader network, including past bribery of city officials and manipulation of historical logs and camera systems. Their cooperation, secured, would fill in additional details of the long-standing criminal operations. Back at the federal facility, Diana's health and well-being became the immediate priority. Psychological experts carefully debriefed her, gradually piecing together fragmented memories with factual evidence of her captivity. These sessions revealed both the resilience and fragility of a life shaped by extraordinary confinement. Each recovered item, each corroborated detail, allowed Diana to reconnect with lost pieces of her personal history, while simultaneously illuminating the broader reach of the criminal network that had orchestrated her disappearance. By the end of the recovery operation, authorities had not only secured Diana's safety, but also amassed overwhelming evidence of the syndicate's crime. Marlowe's confession, combined with physical recovery and technical verification, provided a comprehensive account of 50 years of deception. Investigators now had the tools to pursue the syndicate's leaders, secure a conviction, and dismantle the corrupt network that had enabled Diana's prolonged captivity. The operation marked a turning point, bridging decades of uncertainty with a tangible path toward justice and closure. With Diana Foster finally safe, federal prosecutors shifted focus to dismantling the criminal network responsible for her disappearance. Evidence recovered from the backyard, combined with Marlowe's detailed confession, revealed a web of corruption extending into local government and law enforcement. Retired officials who had facilitated the cover-up were subpoenaed, and financial forensics traced decades of unreported bribe, off-the-books payments, and false. Meticulous investigation aimed not only to punish perpetrators, but also to expose the systemic failures that allowed such a conspiracy to persist for 50 years. Marlowe's cooperation proved invaluable in identifying key figures still alive, including Harold Jennings, a former city councilman, and Carl Whitman, a retired deputy who had directly manipulated patrol records and municipal logs. Prosecutors coordinated with multiple federal agencies, combining technical evidence, tampered camera footage, reconstructed navigation data, and forensic soil analysis with Marlowe's testimony. This comprehensive approach ensured that every lead was corroborated, preventing the syndicate from exploiting gaps in evidence or procedural loopholes that had thwarted investigators for decades. Court preparations were extensive. Lawyers meticulously assembled evidence, verified witness statements, and prepared detailed timelines correlating Diana's disappearance, her captivity, and the syndicate's activities. Every recovered artifact, from journals to rationed food containers, was cataloged and entered into exhibits, each item serving as a testament to the cruelty and premeditation of the operation. Technical specialists reconstructed altered logs, demonstrating to the court how city records had been systematically manipulated to mislead authorities, adding an unprecedented level of credibility to Marlowe's account. Witnesses who had previously remained silent were approached under federal protection. Some, motivated by conscience or fear of legal consequences, agreed to testify regarding past complicity. Their accounts detailed how minor syndicate members and corrupt officials had carried out directives, observed Diana's movements, and altered records to mislead investigators. Each testimony painted a vivid portrait of a network that had operated with chilling precision, using intimidation and bribery to maintain control and evade justice for half a century. As the trial date approached, public interest in Kansas City surged. Media coverage highlighted the decades-long mystery, the complexity of the investigation, and the eventual rescue of Diana Foster. Public forums debated the failures of municipal oversight, while experts discussed the technical ingenuity required to uncover long-hidden crimes. The city collectively confronted the uncomfortable reality that a family had suffered immeasurably while institutions designed to protect them had failed, forcing a reckoning that would resonate through generations. In the weeks leading up to the trial, investigators and prosecutors reflected on the extraordinary persistence required to reach this point. Every corrupted log, every false lead, and every missing record had been a deliberate attempt to conceal the truth. Yet, decades later, modern technology, careful planning, and Marlowe's cooperation had exposed the syndicate in its entirety. The stage was set for courtroom revelation that would not only deliver justice for Diana Foster, but also redefine Kansas City's approach to cold cases, corruption, and organized crime. The trial of the syndicate's leaders began in May 2024 in a federal courthouse packed with reporters, law enforcement officials, and members of the public eager for justice. Diana Foster, now in her late 60s, attended proceedings under federal protection, a symbol of survival and resilience. Prosecutors meticulously presented evidence linking the syndicate to decades of criminal activity, from her abduction to the systematic cover-up involving city officials. Reconstructed logs, archived traffic data, and Marlowe's first-hand confession painted a vivid and chilling picture of premeditated manipulation that had eluded investigators for 50 years. Marlowe's testimony was the centerpiece of the trial. In painstaking detail, he recounted the night of October 14, 1973, describing how Diana had been taken under the cover of black vehicles and how corrupt officials had falsified patrol logs and disabled surveillance cameras. He revealed the syndicate's chilling measures to ensure secrecy, including rotating locations, rationing provisions, and maintaining psychological control over Diana to prevent her escape or disclosure. His candid, remorseful account exposed not only the operational precision of the syndicate, but also the deliberate cruelty inflicted over decades. Witnesses who had previously been coerced or silenced provided corroborating testimony. Retired city employees and former minor syndicate members recounted their roles in falsifying records, bribing investigators, and monitoring Diana's clandestine confinement. Each testimony reinforced Marlowe's account and provided tangible proof of long-standing corruption within Kansas City's municipal structure. The jury was presented with an intricate web of deceit, manipulation, and cruelty that had extended across generations, making the story all the more shocking for those who had believed the disappearance had been an unsolvable mystery. The prosecution introduced technical evidence to bolster their case. Archived camera footage, now digitally enhanced, revealed the black vehicles near the Foster residence. Soil analysis from the backyard property confirmed long-term disturbances consistent with Marlowe's confession, and navigation reconstructions verified the movements of syndicate vehicles on the night of the abduction. Even long-buried municipal records were recovered and compared against falsified logs, showing deliberate omissions and alteration. This combination of modern technology and meticulous archival research created a nearly irrefutable case against the defendant. Emotionally, the courtroom was a battlefield. Diana's testimony, carefully guided by counselors, recounted fragments of her captivity without exposing every trauma. The Foster family, extended relatives, and surviving friends listened in silence, absorbing the weight of decades of abuse, deception, and neglect. While moments of sorrow permeated the room, there was also profound relief. Decades of uncertainty were finally being replaced by accountability and truth. The emotional resonance of these testimonies reinforced the human cost of corruption and crime, reminding all present that justice was not merely procedural, it was personal. By the trial's end, the jury had a comprehensive understanding of the syndicate's operations, the corruption that shielded them, and the extraordinary resilience of Diana Foster. The case, though spanning 50 years, had been meticulously reconstructed through cooperation, technology, and painstaking investigation. As the courtroom adjourned for deliberations, both investigators and family members recognized that while justice was imminent, the emotional journey of healing would continue far beyond the verdict. The trial had become not only a reckoning for the perpetrators, but also a public acknowledgement of decades-long perseverance, courage, and the relentless pursuit of truth. In June 2024, the jury returned their verdict after weeks of deliberation. The weight of 50 years of evidence, Marlowe's detailed confession, recovered artifacts, technical reconstructions, and corroborating witness testimony left little room for doubt. Harold Jennings, Carl Whitman, and the remaining high-ranking members of the syndicate were found guilty on multiple counts: kidnapping, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and bribery of public. The courtroom erupted with a mixture of relief, anger, and sorrow as the verdicts were read aloud, signaling the culmination of a decades-long pursuit for accountability. Sentencing was equally intense, with federal judges emphasizing both the cruelty and the duration of the crimes. Jennings and Whitman received life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, reflecting the magnitude of their wrongdoing and the systemic corruption they had fostered. Lesser accomplices were handed varying sentences dependent on their involvement and cooperation, while Marlowe, whose testimony had been crucial, received a reduced sentence in exchange for his full disclosure and ongoing assistance in dismantling remaining syndicate operations. The legal system, though long delayed, had delivered justice with careful precision. For Diana Foster, the courtroom proceedings were a mixture of closure and lingering trauma. She witnessed decades of secrecy and cruelty exposed in vivid survival. Family members and supporters embraced her, acknowledging the cost of stolen experiences and emotional. Each sentence reinforced the reality that, despite prolonged suffering, truth and justice offering a measure of solace possible. Public reaction in Kansas immediate and intense. News outlets broadcast live reaction from family members, investigators, and legal experts dissecting the syndicate's decades-long manipulation. Community forums debated reforms to prevent future corruption, and city officials publicly acknowledged failures. The case became a defining moment for local governance and law enforcement, demonstrating the importance of oversight, accountability, and unwavering persistence in the pursuit of justice. Meanwhile, investigators and federal agents reflected on the personal toll of the case. Years of frustration, false leads, and bureaucratic obstacles had tested their resilience, yet the ultimate outcome validated every painstaking decision and strategy. Emotional support for agents, prosecutors, and family members became a critical component of recovery as decades of cumulative stress and exposure to human cruelty required careful management. The closure of the trial marked both an endpoint and the beginning of long-term healing. Despite the triumph of justice, a lingering sense of uncertainty remained. While the syndicate had been dismantled and Diana rescued, minor accomplices and hidden operatives likely remained unidentified. The scars left by corruption and the syndicate's prolonged operation would persist in both personal memory and institutional caution. Kansas City, while celebrating closure, understood that even resolved men carry remnants of tragedy. Vigilance was necessary to ensure that history would not repeat itself. Following the sentencing, federal authorities focused on a meticulous recovery of all remaining evidence linked to the syndicate. Safe houses, storage facilities, and hidden caches across Kansas City were systematically searched, revealing long-concealed documented record and personal belongings of Diana Foster. Forensic teams cataloged every item, faded lead supplies, each serving as a stark testament to cruelty and meticulous planning of the syndicate. These discoveries not only corroborated Marlowe's confession, but also illuminated the extensive scope of corruption that had enabled the crimes to remain hidden for half a century. Diana's rehabilitation became the priority of medical and psychological professionals. Her physical health, weakened by prolonged isolation, required months of careful attention, including nutritional therapy, physical rehabilitation, and treatment for chronic conditions developed over decades of neglect. Mental health specialists worked with her to process the trauma of prolonged captivity, helping her reconstruct memories while simultaneously fostering a renewed sense of autonomy and trust. Each small step in her recovery was a monumental achievement, bridging decades of stolen experiences with the possibility of a meaningful future. Simultaneously, investigators traced financial and operational threads that extended beyond the primary syndicate members. Additional minor conspirators, many now elder, were located through meticulous review of bank records, property deeds, and historical correspondence. Several cooperated, providing further insight into the syndicate's methodology, bribery schemes, manipulation of municipal records, and techniques used to mislead law enforcement. Every detail reconstructed a narrative of systematic control and highlighted the extensive reach of organized crime, reinforcing the complexity and precision required to maintain such a long-term cover-up. Technical experts continued to reconstruct altered navigation logs and corrupted camera footage from the night of Diana's disappearance. High-resolution enhancements revealed previously undetected detail, tire treads matching syndicate vehicles, subtle movement patterns near the Foster property, and minute disturbances in the backyard soil, corresponding precisely to the chamber Marlowe had described. Each technological breakthrough reinforced the credibility of decades-old accounts, transforming fragmented evidence into a coherent, verifiable record. The team meticulously documented each discovery, ensuring it could withstand scrutiny in ongoing and potential future prosecution. Community outreach became a component of the broader investigation, as authorities engaged with neighbors, local historians, and journalists to understand the social context in which the syndicate had operated. Interviews highlighted how fear, complacency, and systemic gaps allowed the syndicate to thrive. Public acknowledgement of these failures fostered a dialogue about accountability, prevention, and vigilance, demonstrating that the repercussions of corruption extended far beyond the immediate victims. These discussions contributed to policies aimed at safeguarding future generations from similar abuses of power. By late 2024, the dismantling of the syndicate was nearly complete. Remaining associates were either incarcerated under federal supervision or cooperating with authorities to reveal lingering operational details. Diana Foster's survival and the recovery of evidence symbolized both justice and the resilience of those who refused to abandon hope. Yet even in triumph, shadows lingered. The trauma endured could not be erased, and the city would forever remember the consequences of long-standing corruption. Kansas City had reclaimed a fragment of its integrity, but the story served as a permanent reminder that vigilance and accountability must be sustained to prevent such darkness from returning. By early 2025, authorities completed the final phase of arrest. Remaining high-ranking and minor syndicate members who had evaded capture were apprehended, some in quiet suburban homes, others attempting to flee across state lines. Each operation was carefully coordinated, relying on years of collected evidence, surveillance, and Marlowe's insider knowledge. Federal agents, local law enforcement, and prosecutors worked in tandem, ensuring no loopholes allowed even a single conspirator to escape accountability. The long shadow of the syndicate, which had loomed over Kansas City for decades, was finally broken. Public reaction to the arrests was intense and emotional. Media coverage highlighted the extraordinary perseverance required to bring justice after 50 years. Neighbors, community members, and advocacy groups applauded the tireless efforts of investigators while reflecting on the failures that had allowed the syndicate to operate with impunity for so long. Local leaders issued formal apologies, acknowledging the corruption that had obstructed justice, and promised systemic reforms to prevent such lapses in oversight. The city, while still haunted by past failures, began to cautiously reclaim a sense of collective accountability and civic responsibility. For Diana Foster, the arrests brought a complex mixture of relief, sorrow, and reflection. Her physical freedom had been restored, but emotional scars persisted, woven into the fabric of her identity. Each arrest of a conspirator offered validation that the years of fear and isolation had not been in vain. Yet the passage of decades meant that family, friends, and normalcy could never be fully recovered. Diana's reintegration into society remained fragile, requiring continued support from therapists, loved ones, and federal counselors. Every day was a negotiation between reclaiming her past and navigating the realities of the life she had lost. The investigative team, who had labored for years to unravel the syndicate's operations, experienced their own emotional repercussions. Many had endured frustration, bureaucratic obstacles, and public scrutiny over decades of inconclusive leads. The final arrests brought a sense of vindication and closure, but also the haunting awareness of the human cost that had accumulated over half a century. Agents reflected on the sacrifice, the personal toll of witnessing decades of injustice, and the small victories that collectively restored a measure of justice to Diana Foster and the city of Kansas. Court proceedings for the newly arrested members began promptly, emphasizing their roles in perpetuating corruption, abduction, and the long-term cover-up. Testimonies included detailed accounts of falsified municipal records, bribery schemes, and psychological control measures inflicted on Diana. Technical evidence, navigation reconstructions, forensic analysis of the backyard chamber, and recovered personal items was presented to ensure that no claim of innocence could be credibly made. These trials, though emotionally, were pivotal in establishing a permanent record of accountability, preventing the erasure or obfuscation of decades-long criminal acts. Even with full arrests and convictions, the city of Kansas City grappled with lingering uncertainty. Minor conspirators, unknown financial transactions, and unrecorded communication suggested that remnants of the syndicate's influence might still exist, albeit the emotional scars for Diana, her family, and the agents involved could not be erased, and the decades of stolen life could not be fully reclaimed. Yet the comprehensive dismantling of the syndicate offered tangible justice and a framework for vigilance, reminding all that even the darkest secrets can eventually be exposed through persistence, courage, and unwavering dedication. As 2025 progressed, Diana Foster's life began a slow but steady return to normalcy, though the emotional scars of her captivity remained ever present. With therapy, community support, and renewed connections with surviving family members, she started reclaiming decades of lost time in small, meaningful ways. Simple acts, walking in her old neighborhood, revisiting local shops, and reconnecting with friends who had aged alongside her, became moments of profound significance. Each day was a step toward healing, even as the memory of betrayal, prolonged silence, the authorities lingered like a shadow covered. The closure brought by the dismantling of the syndicate, while monumental, was incomplete in the eyes of those who had lived through the trauma. Friends and family celebrated the justice achieved but mourned the irreplaceable. Investigators and prosecutors reflected on the personal and professional toll of unraveling decades of corruption, acknowledging that while evidence, confessions, and convictions offered satisfaction, they could never fully restore the lie. The bittersweet reality of victory was tempered by the haunting reminder. Diana's testimony during final court proceedings became a defining moment in Kansas City's history. Her calm recounting of decades-long abuse, coupled with the corroborating evidence from recovered records, technical reconstructions, and Marlowe's confession, allowed the public to grasp the full extent of the syndicate's operation. Emotional moments in the courtroom reminded everyone present of the resilience required to survive such prolonged cruelty. It was a testament not only to Diana's endurance, but also to the unwavering commitment of investigators who refused to let time erase justice. Though all major syndicate members were behind bars, minor accomplices and hidden operatives likely remained unidentified, leaving a faint sense of unease. Authorities remained vigilant, monitoring for any residual activity or attempts to reclaim influence, understanding that complete eradication of organized crime is rarely absolute. The cautionary tale of Diana Foster's abduction became a lesson in accountability, community awareness, and the necessity of oversight in municipal and law enforcement structures. Kansas City, scarred but resilient, faced a future tempered by both caution and hope. For Diana's family, emotional recovery was a long, non-linear journey. Each reunion, conversation, and gesture of love reminded them of the life they had lost, while also offering hope for a shared future. Tears mingled with laughter as decades of longing were momentarily eased by the confirmation justice had prevailed. The experience forged deeper connection between family members, investigators, and support networks, creating bonds that transcended grief and honored the perseverance required to finally expose the truth. The story of Diana Foster's disappearance, her captivity, and the eventual dismantling of the syndicate concluded with partial closure. While justice had been served and major criminals punished, the lingering shadows of lost time, emotional trauma, and systemic corruption remained. Kansas City celebrated accountability, but remembered the cautionary lessons embedded in the narrative. Diana's survival stood as a testament to human resilience, the power of persistence, and the unyielding pursuit of truth. Even in victory, the story ended with a quiet reminder that some mysteries, though solved, leave traces of sorrow that never fully vanish. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel for more thrilling and emotional stories.